We are joined now from Washington by the Washington Post reporter with the big Trump interview today. That would be Phil Rucker. Phil, tell us what happened when you got to see Donald Trump. You've been banned for a while before this interview.
We have been. Well, I was at his rally earlier today, and he had me over at the golf course in Northern Virginia, and we had lunch and talked for a while about a range of subjects. But the newsiest might be his announcement that he's not yet ready to endorse Paul Ryan, the House Speaker. He's the top-ranked Republican in Washington. He's in a primary challenge, Republican primary in Wisconsin. That election is on Tuesday of next week, and Trump said, quote, "I'm just not there yet," in terms of endorsing Ryan. He also complimented Paul Ryan's primary opponent. So this is a pretty extraordinary breach of sort of party unity and expected decorum in these circumstances, and I think underscores just how divided the Republican Party is right now.
Phil, did he come into the interview, you think, fixing to say this stuff, or were you pressing him on it?
I pressed him on it. I actually asked him about a tweet that he made last night where he complimented Ryan's opponent and just said, look, can you explain what's going on here? Are you endorsing the opponent? Are you endorsing Paul Ryan? Where do you stand? And he just said that he's giving an endorsement of Ryan serious consideration, but that he's not there yet. And he repeated that point several times in the interview. He left no doubt that that's where he stood. He's simply not ready to endorse Ryan.
Phil, we want to bring in Katy of NBC News in a minute, but just in one or two words, what was his tone in talking about Ryan, McCain, and Kelly Ayotte?
I think he feels like he's the Republican nominee here. He's in charge of the party, and he's very upset that these people are not in lockstep behind him. He criticized McCain. He criticized Ayotte. Of course, both of them came out with statements criticizing Trump over the last few days over his treatment of the Khan family. But Trump feels like he's in charge. It's his party, and these people need to get in line behind him.
Katy, just playing off of what Phil just said a second ago there, it would seem to me and to anybody who's ever covered a presidential campaign that given everything that's happened over the course of the last 96 hours or so, this would be a campaign in utter meltdown, just complete crisis. What does it feel like to you as you watch them move through the day?
It doesn't feel like utter meltdown. I just had a conversation with one of Trump's aides, and they were pretty calm. I think the state of controversy that this campaign has been in has become the norm for this campaign. It's rolling with Donald Trump's whims and rolling with what he said. Was this a calculated move? I think that Phil pressing him means that it was not. But I would point out that, guys, in the past 2 weeks, there's been 5 different Donald Trump controversies. There was the Melania controversy over her speech, the plagiarism, There was Donald Trump fighting with Ted Cruz again linking his father to the assassination of JFK. And then Donald Trump and Russia, Donald Trump fighting with the Khans, and those controversies, those last 2, were not going away. And so what is going on now? Donald Trump is talking about maybe not endorsing Paul Ryan. He extinguishes one controversy with the next. This is how he has operated. And when you talk to people about why he would do this, well, they say he does this because he doesn't have to talk about policy. He's talking about controversies. He's responding. He's in his comfort zone, which is being himself, not necessarily going in and talking about a fleshed out idea about how he would fix the education system in this country, or how he would reform the tax plan further to what he's already said, or how he would actually beat ISIS.
Phil, did he seem at all distracted by or concerned with the Khan controversy when you talked to him?
He did not. We talked about the Khans briefly in the interview, and he basically repeated what he's been saying the last few days, which is that, in his view, he was viciously attacked on the stage at the Democratic National Convention by Mr. Khan, and that he has every right to respond in the way that he did. I'll say during the interview, he was sort of watching himself on Fox News across the room on the TV and was pretty impressed with the statement he put out responding to Obama and how much attention that was getting on Fox News. Look, he's like Katy said, he's rolling with the punches. He's trying to take this campaign 1 hour at a time. And I think he gave me a frank answer about Paul Ryan, which is that, he has not endorsed Ryan. He's not ready to do so. And, he actually said he thinks, he likes Paul Ryan, but he thinks the country needs strong leaders because we're in dangerous times. So he's clearly not on board.
Katy, the Khan controversy, as you pointed out, is not going away. And President Obama, his statement, obviously, as we were talking about on the show earlier today, trying to drive a wedge between Trump and the Republican Party. Does Trump get that, with a Republican who said he's the first one who's moved away from him, said he's going to vote for Hillary Clinton, with all these things, the defections and the stress, does he fear the possibility that the party may just now come apart at the seams?
No, I don't think he does. I think Donald Trump sees this as his party, not Paul Ryan's party, not the Republican leadership. I remember back in May when he was in West Virginia and Paul Ryan was saying he wasn't ready to endorse Donald Trump. Donald Trump shot back that he wasn't ready to endorse Paul Ryan's agenda. And I spoke to Corey Lewandowski, who was the campaign manager at that time, and he told me very frankly, this is not Paul Ryan's party. This is Donald Trump's party. He is the leader of the Republican Party. And that is how Donald Trump has been operating since day one. And the fact that he has won the primaries, he feels there's a mandate. And his rhetoric and his ideas are what is leading this party forward, not necessarily the leadership in Washington. Remember, when you talk to Republican voters and the ones who decided that Donald Trump was going to be their flag carrier, that they didn't like what was going on in Washington. They didn't believe that the people that they voted into power there were doing a good job. They didn't believe that they were representing them. So Donald Trump does have that on his side. That's not the entirety of the Republican Party. He did get a plurality of the Republican Party to get this nomination. The thing with Donald Trump, though, is that he's going to have to expand that out and find independent voters. And do independent voters find him appealing if he's fighting with everybody? And that does include the Republican Party. I'm not so sure it does.
Phil, we talked about Trump's comments on McCain and Ryan and Kelly Ayotte, and you said briefly about the cons. We'll all be refreshing WashingtonPost.com obsessively, but tell us what other topics you covered with him.
We covered a range of topics, and we're going to be publishing more of the interview later into the evening. We talked about the sexual harassment issue. He brought this up the other day regarding his daughter, Ivanka. And we talked about the debates. You know, he wants to negotiate these debates, and so he laid out a little bit of what he hopes to happen there and some of the
Can you give us a little preview of that, of what kind of things he said about the debates?
I will tell you, he says he absolutely thinks the debate should be a head-to-head with Hillary Clinton only, that Jill Stein and the Libertarian candidate should not qualify for the debate stage, so he feels pretty strongly about
regardless of whether they get to 15% or not?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's big news.
It should be head-to-head.
That's big news you got there, fella.
And Phil, do you think he wants, does he want 3 debates, or does he want fewer, from what you can tell?
He wants to negotiate this debate schedule on the best terms possible for himself. He feels like he was able to have an influence in negotiating the debates during the primaries, and plans to try to do that here. He doesn't think these should be up against NFL games or the World Series or any other major competing televised event.
Katy Tur, he kicked a baby out of his event today. How'd that go over with the crowd?
He was joking. I mean, this is coming on the. He was joking, guys. The baby was crying, and he stopped mid-sentence and said he loves babies, and he went on. And a moment later, he said, "Get that baby out of here." It was very clear that he was joking, and there were a number of mothers with babies there. No, the baby stayed.
Oh, the baby stayed.
I was there too. It was a joke. It was definitely a joke.
The baby stayed. Well,
sometimes those jokes don't translate to television, but that was very clearly just a colorful aside.
Donald Trump, the only candidate I've ever heard of who would even risk making a joke about kicking a baby out of an event.